Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors meeting for Tuesday, October 24th, 2017. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Madam President. President Breed.
Here.
Breed present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen not present. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell present. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer present. Supervisor Kim. Kim present. Supervisor Peskin.
Present.
Peskin present. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan present. Supervisor Safai. Safai present. Supervisor Sheehy. Sheehy not present. Supervisor Tang. Present. Tang present. Supervisor Yee.
Present.
Yee present. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen present. Madam President, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty.
liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And before we move on with our agenda, I'd like to recognize that we have students from Tung Hua here from Hong Kong. Thank you for being here today and welcome to the chamber for the San Francisco Board of Supervisors. And with that, Madam Clerk, are there any communications?
I have none to report, Madam President.
Okay, colleagues, are there any changes to the meeting minutes of September 19, 2017? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve those minutes? Moved by Supervisor Fewer, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, those meeting minutes will be approved after public comment. Madam Clerk, let's go to the consent agenda.
Items 1 through 15 are on consent. These items are considered to be routine. If a member objects, an item may be removed and considered separately.
Roll call vote.
On items 1 through 15, Supervisor Sheehy? Sheehy absent. Supervisor Tang?
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee? Supervisor Yee on the consent agenda.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed?
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen?
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell? Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer? Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim? Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin?
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan? Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai? Safai, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Those items are passed unanimously. Madam Clerk, let's go to item number 16.
Item 16 is an ordinance to amend the planning code to revise the amount of the inclusionary affordable housing fee, the on-site and off-site affordable housing alternatives, and other inclusionary housing requirements, and to affirm the CEQA determination and to make the appropriate findings.
Supervisor Kim. Madam Clerk, since the House has changed, please call the roll.
On item 16, Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. There are 11 ayes.
This ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Amen. Item number 17.
Item 17 is an ordinance to amend the planning code pertaining to commercial uses in the Polk Street and Pacific Avenue neighborhood commercial districts to make technical and other amendments.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Next item, please.
Item 18 is an ordinance to amend the administrative code to remove references to a 10-year residency requirement for the displaced tenant preference in city affordable housing programs, to affirm the CEQA determination and to make the appropriate findings.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Next item.
Item 19 is an ordinance to amend the Park Code to prohibit the use of glass beverage containers with certain exceptions in all city parks.
Supervisor Sheehy.
Yes, thank you. We've spoken to various stakeholders, in particular those who hold events in the park, including Stern Grove. There are more additional technical issues we need to work out. Therefore, I'm making a motion to re-refer this back to committee.
Supervisor Sheehy has made a motion to send this back to committee, seconded by Supervisor Peskin. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, this item will be sent back to committee. Next item, please.
Item 20 is an ordinance to amend the Environment Code to ban the sale of upholstered furniture and juvenile products made with or containing an added flame retardant chemical.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance is finally passed unanimously. Next item.
Item 21 is a resolution to receive and approve an annual report for the Lower Polk Community Benefit District for fiscal years 2015 through 16.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the resolution is adopted unanimously. Next item.
Item 22, resolution to concur with the recommendation of the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority, the TJPA, and to add the California High-Speed Rail Authority, or CHSRA, as a new member of the TJPA Board of Directors, to authorize the mayor to execute an amendment to add the CHSRA as a new TJPA board member, and to authorize the Board of Supervisors to appoint one additional director and one alternate to serve on the TJPA Board of Directors.
Supervisor Kim.
Thank you so much, President Breed. And I just want to make one additional amendment to this resolution today, and I want to thank President Breed for your suggestion. And so the final amendment to this resolution added after line 21, after further resolved, semicolon, and be it further resolved that the additional director and alternate director appointed by the Board of Supervisors shall have expertise in large, complex infrastructure funding, policy, and or project delivery. If there are any further questions on this item, we have the director of the Trans-Bay Joint Powers Authority, Mark Zabania here, as well as Ben Triposis from the California High-Speed Rail Authority, for whom, whose agency for whom we are adding another seat to the TJPA Board of Directors.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Supervisor Kim has made a motion. It was seconded by Supervisor Peskin. Colleagues, can we take the amendment without objection? Without objection, the amendment passes. Are there any other questions on this item? Seeing none, colleagues, can we, looks like for this particular item, can we take it same house, same call? Without objection, the item as amended passes unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call items 23 and 24.
Items 23 and 24 comprise two motions to confirm two mayoral appointments to the Redevelopment Successor Agency Oversight Board. For item 22, appoints Mr. Ken Bukowski. For item 24, appoints Ms. Lisa Motoyama, for both terms ending January 24th, 2020, to the Redevelopment Successor Agency Oversight Board.
Colleagues, can we take these items, same house, same call? Without objections, the motions are adopted unanimously. All right, Madam Clerk, please call items 25 and 26.
Item 25 is a motion to appoint Supervisor Sandra Lee Fewer, term ending January 31st, 2019, to the Golden Gate Bridge Highway and Transportation District. Item 26 is a motion to appoint Sandra Lee Fewer for an indefinite term to the Children and Families First Commission.
Colleagues, is there a motion to excuse Supervisor Fewer, moved by Supervisor Farrell, seconded by Supervisor Kim? Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Fewer is excused. Madam Clerk, on both items, please call the roll.
On items 23 and 24, Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. There are 10 ayes.
Those motions are approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Item 27 is a motion to appoint Supervisor Malia Cohen, term ending December 2nd, 2018, to the California State Association of Counties.
Is there a motion to excuse Supervisor Cohen, moved by Supervisor Peskin, seconded by Supervisor Yee? Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Cohen is excused. On the item, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On item 25, Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim.
Aye.
Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. There are 10 ayes.
The motion is approved unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call the next item.
Item 28 is a motion to appoint Supervisor Jane Kim for an indefinite term to the City College Financial Assistance Fund Oversight Committee.
Colleagues, entertain a motion to excuse Supervisor Kim, moved by Supervisor Ronan, seconded by Supervisor Yee. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, Supervisor Kim is excused. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
On item 28, Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai. Safai, aye. There are 10 ayes.
The motion is approved unanimously. All right, let's skip over our special items and go to committee reports.
So items 35 through 38 were considered by the Budget and Finance Committee at a rescheduled meeting on Thursday, October 19th, and were forwarded as committee reports. Item 35 is an ordinance to amend ordinance number 112-16 to authorize an increase of the issuance and sale of tax-exempt or taxable water revenue bonds and other forms of indebtedness by the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $287 million.
Roll call vote.
On item 35, Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen. Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Next item, please.
Item 36 is an ordinance to appropriate $13 million of proceeds from the Water Enterprise Revenue Bonds to fund the long-term monitoring permit program for the vegetation restoration of the Water System Improvement Program construction sites and the bioregional habitat restoration projects as required by the related federal and state regulatory permits in fiscal years 2017 through 18.
Colleagues, can we take this item, same house, same call? Without objection, the ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Next item.
Item 37 is an ordinance appropriating approximately $4 million from Water Enterprise Fund balance and deappropriating $2.7 million from the Water Enterprise operating budget to fund the installation of the land mobile radio system in fiscal year 2017 through 18.
Same house, same call. Without objection, the ordinance passes unanimously on the first reading. Next item.
Item 38 is a resolution to authorize the controller to enter into the Fifth Amendment of a software license and support agreement between Oracle America, Inc. and the city for a total amount not to exceed $12 million.
Supervisor Kim.
Thank you, President Breed. I know that the Controller's Office is here today, so I just had a question. I'm not going to ask about open source and software license, although my position on that remains the same. But my question was just on the fact that this is the first time this contract is coming to the board. That's what I read in the BLA report. Because it didn't initially trigger either the 10 years or $10 million. Yeah. But I do have concerns about contracts which constantly get amended. And I'm not saying that this was a way to ensure that it didn't come before some type of oversight, but it appears that way. And so I just wanted to ask why the contract was done this way instead of having it be a long-term contract that would come before the board the first time when the contract was initiated.
Good afternoon, Supervisors. Through the President, Ben Rosenfield, Controller's Office. Supervisor Kim, just to clarify, the initial project implementation, which was to implement an Oracle PeopleSoft payroll system, was approved by the Board of Supervisors. So the underlying system and the development of it was approved by the Board of Supervisors. Subsequent to that, of course, we have annual maintenance requirements. We've been handling those as 3-year amendments. That are for the maintenance of that, and this is the first time that those maintenance contracts have tripped over the $10 million. We are working on longer-term amendments. You see one of them here, and so I'm sympathetic to your point. It's really the dominant way, though, that maintenance contracts have been negotiated to this point.
Okay, so that was just a clarifying point because I'd read that in the BLA report. So this isn't the first time this contract is coming before the Board of Supervisors.
This specific contract for maintenance, yes, but the fundamental choice to allow us to implement an Oracle PeopleSoft payroll system and financial system, each of those contracts, which were much larger, came to the Board of Supervisors initially prior to us implementing.
Okay. Again, thank you so much for the answer. I'm always, just want to make sure that departments aren't escaping an oversight mechanism by lowering the number of years or the dollar amounts until it gets to the point that it does come before the board. My position still remains the same, so I will be dissenting on this item, but I appreciate that at least that concern has been addressed. Thank you very much, Mr. Rosenfield.
Thank you, Supervisor Kim. Madam Clerk, on the item, please call the roll.
On item 38, Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yi.
Aye.
Yi, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell. Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer. Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, no. Supervisor Peskin.
No.
Peskin, no. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. There are 9 ayes and 2 noes with Supervisors Kim and Peskin in the dissent.
The resolution is adopted. Colleagues, we're going to go to roll call for introductions, but before we do, I just want you to know that at 2:30 we will interrupt roll call in order to do several special commendations. So, Madam Clerk, if we can begin with roll call for introductions.
Thank you, Madam President. Supervisor Sheehy, first up to
Submit.
introduce new business. Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Tang.
Submit.
Thank you. Supervisor Yi.
Submit.
Thank you. Supervisor Breed.
Submit.
Thank you. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you. Submit, please.
Thank you. Supervisor Farrell.
Thank you. Wow, that was quick. So, colleagues, just one ordinance today I'm introducing. I'm sure everyone's sick and tired of hearing me talk about fiber. Thank you for the acknowledgement, Supervisor. I want to talk about internet access and all the importance of it. I'm introducing an ordinance today around fiber-ready new buildings to ensure that new development in San Francisco is installing the infrastructure necessary to support fiber technology in the future. The ordinance itself is very straightforward. It's going to require that commercial development over 25,000 square feet and residential buildings that are 3 units or more install the infrastructure necessary in their buildings to support fiber technology and the services it can provide. The policy is prospective, not retroactive, and will only apply to new commercial and residential development throughout San Francisco. I want to thank BOMA in particular for their early engagement with this policy, as well as SPUR and the Housing Action Coalition, who helped with the outreach to residential developers, and look forward to the discussion ahead. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Farrell. Supervisor Fewer.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, today I introduce a resolution calling upon Congress to initiate an investigation and impeachment proceedings for President Donald J. Trump. I introduce this resolution today because I truly believe that now is the time for San Francisco to take a stand on the dangerous and divisive leadership of the White House. I want to thank my co-sponsors, Supervisors Ronan, Tang, Safai, Sheehy, Breed, and Farrell for their support. I must say I've been in discussion about the possibility of introducing this resolution for some time with a handful of lawyers, District 1 constituents, and more recently, the group Indivisible San Francisco. As the events surrounding number 45 continue to unfold, I simply cannot wait any longer, and I hope that San Francisco can join cities like Los Angeles, Oakland, Alameda, Richmond, West Hollywood, Santa Cruz, and others in calling for the U.S. House of Representatives to authorize an investigation into whether sufficient grounds exist for the impeachment of President Trump. Specifically, such impeachment proceedings should explore obstruction of justice, collusion, and violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause, given his firing of Director Comey, the actions of several close advisors in communication with Russia, and the ways in which he financially benefits from business dealings with foreign governments. Truthfully, every morning I wake up and remind myself this is not normal. I worry that only 6 months into the Trump administration, the chaos surrounding this presidency has become the new norm. And while I wholeheartedly disagree with many of the budget and policy decisions coming out of the White House, but that cannot be the sole reason for this resolution today. I am aware that calling for impeachment proceedings is a serious issue, but so is undermining the integrity of the presidency or jeopardizing our national security. U.S. citizens and residents are in fear of nuclear war, of whether they will have health care, of whether their civil rights are intact. The actions of the current president and his administration are not normal, nor are they acceptable, and San Francisco should go on record declaring our opposition to hate, fears, lies, and incompetence. Colleagues, I look forward to your support for this resolution. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor. Supervisor Kim. Thank you. Supervisor Peskin.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Colleagues, today I'm introducing a request that our city attorney draft a charter amendment for all of your consideration that would prohibit San Francisco commissioners and board members from continuing to serve on those public policy-making bodies once they declare their candidacy for elected office. As the Chronicle pointed out earlier, I guess it was last weekend, this was actually an unofficial policy started by Mayor Willie Brown, and it was applied rigorously and uniformly without consideration of political stripe or other affiliation. Earlier this year, the board passed ethics reform introduced by my office to require disclosure of payments or other contributions made at the behest of city commissioners or board members under the theory that commissioners who are appointed to those bodies to make important policy decisions in furtherance of the public interest should be transparent about how they may also leverage those positions of power to direct the flow of money through our political economy. And by the same theory, I believe that once any commissioner takes out papers for any local elected office, that should apply as well. And so rather than having it be an unofficial and seldomly applied policy, let us make it law. Secondly, I'm introducing a closed session discussion for closed labor contracts. We actually had a closed session on open labor contracts, but in 2019, we have a number of contracts that will come open. I would like to have those discussions in closed session with the Department of Human Resources. And finally, colleagues, after conferring with former Supervisor Bill Maher, who was the author of the 1984 Proposition K, the Shadow Ban Ordinance, I am beginning a process of determining how Prop K should be adjusted and in some cases strengthened, and I say that in light of information that there is a movement to undo Proposition K, Section 195 of our Planning Code, that has really been critical to the success of our parks, particularly those that are in and around the downtown and Chinatown. So I will be working on that effort in the weeks and months ahead and look forward to involving all of you in those discussions. The rest I will submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Peskin. Supervisor Ronan.
Thank you, colleagues. Today, I have one item for introduction and an in memoriam. I will start with the introduction of first-of-its-kind legislation to address gentrification and proactively strengthen the cultural identities of neighborhoods like the Mission, Japantown, and the Castro. I want to thank my co-sponsors of this legislation. An extra special thanks to Supervisor Cohen, who was an early adopter of this idea and who worked with me to get this legislation drafted. Thank you so much, Supervisor Cohen. Also to Supervisor Kim, Fewer, Sheehy, Yee, and Farrell, thank you so much for your co-sponsorship. Our cultural districts are what make San Francisco the world-class city that it is. And not only are these neighborhoods beloved, they are also the backbone of our economy. Tourists come to San Francisco to immerse themselves in the unique cultures, aesthetics, and artistic traditions of each neighborhood. Last year, over 25.2 million visitors spent over almost $9 billion in the city's restaurants, shops, galleries, and theaters. Yet our neighborhoods have never been more at risk. At the federal level, President Trump is eliminating all funding for the arts and culture in his budget and has cut millions of dollars for affordable housing. At the local level, San Francisco is losing our diverse neighborhoods as decades-old ethnic communities are being forced to leave. Our artists and arts organizations are also disappearing as rents continue to rise. Even historic businesses are at risk. Commercial rents in most neighborhoods are doubling and tripling, and otherwise healthy businesses that act as anchors for our commercial corridors are being closed down for good. Business closures are up over 800% from 25 years ago. Up until this point, the response to gentrification has been to say no. Communities have been trying to stop new people and new businesses from moving in and to stop new buildings from being built, but it hasn't been all that successful. We want to create a tool that fights displacement by saying yes, and that is exactly what this legislation does. It says yes to protecting our cultures, our art, and our residents. And here are a few more details about the contents of the cultural district legislation. The legislation confirms the city's goals for establishing cultural districts, including preserving significant cultural assets, stopping displacement, providing economic opportunities, promoting affordable housing and homeownership, attracting arts and entrepreneurship, and promoting the city's tourism industry. It defines what a cultural district is and establishes a clear process for creating new cultural districts. It clarifies the role for city departments in providing support to cultural districts via data analysis, programming, and guidance in historic preservation, economic development, arts, community development, and affordable housing, public infrastructure, planning, and zoning protections. It provides a structure for financial support and public oversight when funds are provided to cultural districts through public grants or private donations. And it ensures ongoing community voice by giving the board discretion to establish citizen advisory committees for each cultural district. Colleagues, I hope to have your support on this legislation as it moves forward, and I want to thank so much the existing cultural districts, the Calle 24 Latino Cultural District in the Mission, the Compton's Transgender District in the Tenderloin, Soma Filipina in Soma, especially for and the Leather District, for the LGBTQ Leather District also in the Tenderloin, for being so involved in the drafting of this legislation and for fighting so hard to preserve your communities and your culture that we so love in San Francisco. So thank you so much. I see representatives here from all three districts, so thank you. And colleagues, the second item that I have is a really tough one for me. It's an in memoriam for my dear friend, Jesus Lona Esteva, who many of us knew as Chewy. I'm sure you've all seen Chewy in City Hall. He is the son of Dona Gil Lona and Gloria Esteva is his grandmother. He was born on December 11th, 1995 in the DF, Mexico. He had Down syndrome and came to the U.S. at the first time at age of 5 after his first cancer diagnosis. He's been battling since the age of 5 leukemia his entire life. And despite the fact that he came to this country with his incredible mother and grandmother to fight to survive, and has fought leukemia 3 times successfully up until now, Chewy lived life with a heart full of love and passion and joy, and with a understanding of human emotions like I've never seen before. I'm just going to tell one short personal story on how Chewy and I became close, and he changed my life. I've known him since he was a little kid, and one day when I was an organizer for the day labor program, it was the worst day I've ever had in any job because I was in a conflict with the members of the program who I was organizing. And I was so upset about it. I was crying, but I had to leave to go lead a protest against an employer that had stolen wages of a day laborer. And I had organized this protest in the morning, and there were, dozens and dozens of people that I was supposed to lead in this fierce way to go fight this employer and get these wages back. And I had just had this horrible day and couldn't choke back the tears and had to find the strength to lead this protest. I had met Chewy a few times but didn't know him that well, and I walked up choking back the tears, and he just ran from the crowd and gave me a huge hug and basically told me, "You can do this. I've got you. You've got this." And from that moment on, I've just had a very, very special bond with this very, very special individual who has suffered so much pain so many times, and yet every single time you would see him, he would just greet you with joy and dignity and grace every single time. And I just love him so much, and I love his family and his mother and his grandmother and his brother, who is our District 9 Youth Commissioner. And so on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, I want to submit this in memoriam and say that Chewy is survived by his mother, Donahi, his grandmother, Gloria, his aunt, Kitsia, who works at Causa Justa, his brother, Mampu, who is our District 9 Youth Commissioner, many cousins and aunts and uncles that love him very much, and the large social justice community in San Francisco who, like me, have been very touched by his life and his example. And the rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Ronan. Do the remaining members will interrupt new business? Madam President.
Thank you. And so we have several 230 commendations, but before we get into those commendations, I would like to recognize that former Supervisor John Avalos is in the audience. Welcome, Supervisor Avalos. And we also have our police chief, Bill Scott, is here today. I'm sure you are aware that there are a number of our captains that will be honored by members of the board, and we will begin those commendations at this time, starting with Supervisor Tang.
Thank you very much. And I don't know if I see Captain Flaherty. Oh, there she is. Come on up. So I think that many other supervisors will be, as President Breed mentioned, honoring the captains who are transitioning into different roles. And so today I wanted to bring up our captain, Denise Flaherty of Terraville Police Station. Thank you so much for your service at our station. I know that we all saw the promotional lists, and our captains are moving on to different roles. Captain Flaherty, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you've been with the force for about 25 years. At Terraville for about 3, and she will be moving on to serve as a captain at the Police Academy. And I know it goes without saying, and all my colleagues will say this too, is that there are just so many different issues that all of our captains have to do. They have to be community liaisons, they have to work with data to figure out how it is that we address crime, we have to be proactive together. There's just so much, and of course there are people who will just say, oh, the police aren't doing enough, or they love you too. There's so many different emotions that run through our neighborhoods, but I really wanted to take this moment just to thank you so much, because I know it's not an easy job to be a captain of a station, and I just really appreciated our very close working relationship throughout this time when you were there. So I wish you all the best as you work with the other officers in the academy. I know it's going to be really important, as all of us care so much about how our officers are trained, making sure that they instill within them a sense of helping our people and keeping our neighborhood safe, having a principled way of approaching their job. So thank you, and I want to wish you all the best in your new role.
Captain, before you walk off, if you want to say a few words, please come to the microphone.
Thank you, President Breed. Supervisors, thank you very much for this recognition and acknowledgement of my dedication and commitment. As a native San Franciscan, born and raised in the Mission District, it is truly an honor for me to serve this community that I cherish so deeply, and I look forward to continued service in my role as captain of the training division. So thank you very much for this honor. Thank you.
Thank you. And Chief, if you wouldn't mind coming up to join the photo, that would be great. Thank you for your service and congratulations on your new assignment at the Police Academy. Okay, with that, we will go to Supervisor Safai for the next honoree.
Great. Thank you, President Breed, members. I have two today, and under one very happy circumstances and one very sad circumstances. I want to begin with a commendation on behalf of our entire community. Some of you might not already know, but May Wong, a longtime community leader in the Excelsior and District 11, passed away this past week on October 20th, quietly with her family. And it was very unexpected. Many people were caught off guard. We've been getting calls all week long. I think there's just been shock and dismay and sadness of her energy leaving us. She was a force. She was someone that worked with all of the different leaders in our community. She was someone that would call you at any time of day and give you her peace of mind, give you her ideas and suggestions. But then she would show up unexpectedly with cookies and food and welcoming everyone, and someone that was extremely pleasant. And I can say someone that the minute that I let it be known that I was running for office, called me 11 o'clock on a Friday night and said, I'm going to be with you, but here are the list of things that I want you to do when you become supervisor, because you are going to win. And she was one of the very first people to tell me that. I know that she worked with a lot of us in the community on so many different things. Saturdays in the park, at McLaren Park. She was active in recreation and park rebuilds all over the community. She was active in revitalization and crime abatement. She worked closely with our captain. She was a member of the Lions Club. She was part of the Friends and Advocates of Crocker Amazon Excelsior. She was part of the EDIA, the Excelsior Collaborative, the Excelsior Action Group, the McLaren Park Collaborative, and Friends of the Jerry Garcia. There pretty much is nothing in the Excelsior and District 11 that she was not a member of. And I see folks nodding their head. Our former supervisor knew her really well and worked really closely with her. She's a native San Franciscan, born and raised in our community. She went to Monroe Elementary School, James Denman, and she was a Balboa Buccaneer. And so we're really sad to have lost her. She did things, on a whim, would just show up and initiate. She did the backpack giveaway at Monroe Elementary School and just was consistently involved in advocating for parks and people and cared about people deeply. She had a wonderful heart. So it's a big loss for us today. I will ask that we end in memoriam in her honor, but I want to give this to her son, John, if he's here in the audience. If not, maybe a member of the community can accept it on his behalf. It might have been a little too hard for him to come, so it's so shocking. But again, we want to end and say that she will be deeply missed, and we all loved her. Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, for indulging me. The second thing the second person that we want to honor today is our captain, Captain. Captain Joe McFadden. And so I will be brief because I know he likes to talk. No, I'll just say, I want to give a little background of Captain McFadden. Before I get into a little bit of his background, he was someone that you could call any time of day, any hour of the day, any day of the week, and he would return your phone call. He was extremely personable, active, initiated things. He oftentimes would say, just hold on, Osh, be patient, I got it in the works. And next thing you know, It would show up that, 10 cops would show up to a place that we had been complaining about. We had an extensive amount of, unfortunately, illegal gambling shacks in our community. He was on the forefront of being active and shutting them down. He did community policing. He had officers on the street. He was ahead of the curve when it came to where we needed folks to be. And there isn't any initiative or assignment that he wouldn't take on, big or small. Whether it was dog barking, and I talked to him about that, he would show up, meet with the constituent. Whether it was illegal parking, whether it was elderly folks being robbed on the corridors, whether it was teenagers that needed a little bit of talking to. I think he is what I think, and I think Marty Halloran would agree, he's an old school cop. And I think there's so many of the cops like that bring that perspective and history to the department that are valued. And we certainly valued, and we're very fortunate out in District 11 to have a captain that was as aggressive and friendly all at the same time. He's a native San Franciscan, one of 10 children, born to Dr. McFadden. He attended St. Ignatius Preparatory and St. Mary's College. He graduated with a degree in psychology and also took courses in criminal justice. He settled into the police department and starting to raise his family in the Sunset in 1989. He was involved in undercover details and worked with the SWAT team and was promoted to sergeant in 1996, ran undercover operations in the Tenderloin before being assigned to the domestic violence unit. And domestic violence work back then was, again, was forward-thinking and on the cutting edge of what was happening in that regard. After, as an inspector for the domestic violence response unit for 9 years, he was transferred to management control and internal affairs in 2005, and then became a sergeant inspector assigned to investigate and coordinate officer-involved shooting incidents. So again, on the cutting edge, ahead of his time, involved in things that we're talking about now and still debating, and Captain McFadden was involved in those conversations really early on. After that, he was involved in Homeland Security and assigned to crime scenes investigative units, and then in 2012 became our captain in the Ingleside Police Station. And we advocated and have asked for him to stay on longer than was normal. And I know that there were a couple of times he's like, Ash, you got to let me go. And we're like, sorry, man, we need you a little bit longer out there, because the community, it really means a lot to the folks that have been involved in doing the work out in the community to have a captain and have that consistency. And so we've been working consistently with him, and he's been working so hard on domestic violence, sexual assault, human trafficking, elder abuse, child abuse, so many other things. So it is with a heavy heart, but also with very great pride that we see him promoted to a new assignment. And I think that there's a lot of folks in the community that came out today also to mourn May Wong, but also to celebrate and say goodbye to Captain McFadden. So you will be missed, but congratulations on your new assignment.
Captain, before you speak, we have a number of members of the Board of Supervisors that like to make comments as well. So if you could be patient. And just remember what Supervisor Safai said. He's a talker. So we want to give him some time to say whatever it is he wants to say. We'll start with Supervisor Sheehy.
Yes, and wow, Captain McFadden. And if you notice, there's 5 of us. So first of all, his biggest challenge, I think, is he covers 5 different supervisorial districts, which I think is an amazing feat in and of itself. And you're going to hear from all of us like this tremendous record of service, because when I think of Captain McFadden, I think of selfless service. And, as Asha was talking about how he was there for him in District 11, he's been there for me from the get-go in District 8. And I think if you were to ask Scott Wiener, he was there for Scott. And it's not just about how he helps each individual supervisor, and I don't know how, he must spend half his day on the phone talking to us. But people love him in the community. He gets out to every community group, every neighborhood watch. His presence is so soothing. His direction is so powerful. People feel safe. And at the end of the day, isn't that what it's about? Feeling safe. And he's been such a great ally, such a great friend. I'm really crushed and heartbroken. I'm thinking, do people really want me to get elected in room 200? Thank you. Because he is so sorely missed. I really appreciate everything. It's been so great working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Sheehy. Supervisor Ronan.
Captain McFadden, I just wanted to echo my colleagues and also thank you so much for your service to Bernal Heights neighborhood, which is a part of my district that you have served all these years. From getting footbeats back to being at all of our meetings dealing with Buck Baggett, as regular phone calls. I think you probably talked to him more than me. You really are incredibly accessible and warm and available for all of your constituents and the people that you serve. So thank you so much. You will be missed, and good luck on your next adventure.
Thank you. Supervisor Yee.
Thank you very much. I want to actually say this to both captains that have gotten acknowledgement today. Captain Flaherty and McFadden, both of you are serving my district, and people don't know this, but I think District 7 is the only district that doesn't actually have a police station in the district. So I have to share all you guys. And I think it's been a wonderful partnership, working with both captains. And I think the only way we're going to be able to minimize the damage that people will give when they commit crimes is when we work in partnership, whether it's the community with the police department and police stations and the captains and also the people that are creating the policies. I think that's what both of you represent, just really committed people to be able to work with just about everybody, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Supervisor Yee. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, Chief. And Marty Halloran, thank you for joining us today to celebrate and recognize the leadership change. It's always very special to see people, particularly those that have grown up in San Francisco, come back and to serve. It's something personal for myself and Supervisor Yee, Tang, and Breed, who are also, and Farrell and Fewer, okay? There's a lot of us now on the board. But when you have a Native perspective, you've seen how the city has changed, and you're able to grow and rise to the different challenges. In each neighborhood is nuanced. I did not realize that you policed 5 different districts. For those of you that don't know, McFadden also policed the Visitation Valley, particularly Sunnydale neighborhoods, and did an incredible job. In my office, we called him McFaddy. Not Fat T, but Fatty, as in McFadden. And it was a term of endearment. And I find it interesting that he returned your phone calls. I don't think he ever returned my call, but he always showed up. He would actually come in person to the office to come and to give us a very brief update as to what's been going on. And I just also want to add my voice to those of my colleagues and just let you know that it's been a real pleasure to serve San Francisco with you. And I've been on the board 7 years, and you're my 3rd captain in Ingleside, and I think this is my 3rd one is also in the Bayview Station as well. Raj Vaswani is also being promoted and has been hauled to this chamber many times. But McFadden, it's really good to see you. I'm going to miss you during our family day in Visitation Valley. As you know, that's going to be coming up. You're part of the family, so I want to extend an invitation to you to go to the Irish parade and then come on over to family day. You know, we always would talk about how stressful that day was, but you're part of the family, and it's really good to see you moving up. And Chief, I am saddened by the change, but also excited by the change, because you really have selected a handful of outstanding captains to move on and up, and I think that is the direction that this city should be going in. And so I just want to also give my compliments to the chief and to those other persons that had the wherewithal and the insight to recognize leadership and to cultivate it and to then uplift and promote it. So congratulations to you. I'm very excited. Thank you.
Thank you. Supervisor Kim.
Thank you. You do not cover the district that I represent, but but I have had an opportunity to work with you, and I just want to thank you so much for being so incredibly responsive, but also hands-on. Particularly recently, when we had a very special event at City College, your calm and your guidance and your leadership really helped us make that event happen and be secure and safe. So thank you for that, and congratulations as you continue your work with the station. And now I feel bad. I'm going to have to bring Commander Ewan to the board meeting next week. But I did want to just finally say my thoughts and prayers are really with the police department and continue to be as we think about our Tenderloin Police Station officer. And I know that so much is weighing upon this family today as we as we are excited about the new promotions. And so just want to thank you all and let you all know that you are all in our prayers.
Thank you, Supervisor Tang. And finally, Supervisor Tang.
Thank
Did I
you.
say Kim Tang? Sorry.
It's okay. Again, you don't cover my district as well, but I thought since you are a District 4 resident that I would jump in and just say, believe it or not, what everyone said is actually true. And I just want to thank you as well. You're a wonderful spirit. We just love having you around, even if you're just hanging out in our district, even though you're not policing our district. So thank you, Captain McFadden, and congratulations on your new role.
Thank you. And finally, Captain, you have an opportunity to speak after all these amazing comments.
Thank you.
Thank you. I promise not to go on for more than an hour and a half. I see up here time remaining 2 hours. Wow, great, thanks. Honestly, thank you, President Breed. Thank you for having this. And specifically, I'm now actually working for all of you supervisors because I'm in a citywide major crimes or general crimes unit. So I actually cover all your districts now, the entire city and county. So you will see some of me around. I do specifically want to thank Supervisor Asha Safai, who helped put this together and everything else, and his staff has been wonderful, and he's been great in the district. He's been great in the transition from Supervisor Avalos, who was here before, and so Asha, my praise to you for everything you've done. Ingleside I was truly honored to get Ingleside. Ingleside was my home station. It was the first station I got sent to after my probation year as a young officer working with Marty Halloran in the Sunnydale. That was our first assignment ever. We were the original 6-car, the Sunnydale from the Ingleside. To come back years later, 20 years plus later as the captain there, it was really an honor for me. I actually feel very blessed that I was able to work in the Ingleside. But, and when I say that I was blessed and honored, it's a family there. Ingleside's a family. And there's some of these people here that I want to acknowledge. Joelle Keneally, the president of my CPAB, and she works tirelessly for the community, as well as Rex Tabora, Barbara Fugate, Sharon Engelhart, Bill and Alan Mary Harris, Benny Manconi and his wife Lena, Dina, Mel Flores is here, Patty Spaniak, Joe and Linda, Dave Hooper, Stephanie Kahina. These are all people within the community that I became very close to, that I plan on continuing the relationships that we started. That, and it is a combined effort. I can't be up here without acknowledging what other agencies have done. When Supervisor Safai had mentioned gambling shacks, illegal businesses, gang hangouts, it's a collective, and we had a lot of work from our city attorney's office. Victoria Weatherford is here and Carolina from our city attorneys, who do most of the groundwork with us. So I want to recognize them and what they've done for the Ingleside also. In addition to that, the crew you see behind you, those are all my guys and gals. So each and every one of those people are the ones that do all the work. They make me look great. So if you look at that troubled group in the back, you know, they're the ones that are the legwork, the groundwork. You have housing officers. You have 35-car undercover team, Sergio Lopez, who leads my undercovers, Ronan Scholdeis from CSI. It's a collective of everybody. And so these are all the ones that do the work. I'm just the one that help them make that happen. So really, this is a tribute to them, not to me. So as I say that, the last thing I want to end with, and it's been a pleasure serving the 5 supervisors within my group and of course, you as my supervisor here in where I live. I do want to end with a story about May Wong. So May was always on me about not wearing my vest when I went to and from different community meetings. And Joelle had told me that I should wear it today, so in specific denial to her, I'm not wearing it, so you could take your shots. But May would always go on, and I said, hey, May, the reason I'm not wearing it is that I'm not destined to die by the hand of another. I think I'm destined to be beat up by you, and maybe that would be my final call to duty. She was hysterical. She was very, very active. When I first started, I actually missed a meeting with her in the first week as a new captain there at Ingleside, and boy, did I hear of it. I had more phone calls about you don't miss a meeting with May Wong. And I grew to love her. She was a great, great lady, a great asset to the neighborhood. Mel Flores has taken over the EDIA for her and done a fantastic job, but there's no one that will be able to equal what she's done. So it's just a tribute to her that I'd like to end with. Thank you.
He's not retiring, he's just got a promotion, okay? Captain, thank you so much for all your work you did for the community. You're definitely going to be missed out there. And if those of you who've come here for the two honorees, if you wouldn't mind taking a photo along with the chief right outside with the supervisors, that would be great. Again, thank you, and we'll definitely see you around. Thank you all for being here. I guess the whole chamber was here for... All right. Okay, Madam Clerk, let's... we have some more commendations here today. Supervisor Sheehy, you're up next.
Thank you. Today, I have the privilege of recognizing Bonnie Ross. Storytelling is a powerful tool that can broaden views and change perspectives. However, many inspiring and enlightening stories often go unheard. Beginning in 2015, Voices from the Kitchen has developed a series of storytelling events presented twice a year. Each event showcases food by aspiring entrepreneurs and is centered on an intentionally broad theme. The stories come from a variety of diverse perspectives, including cooks, writers, and artists. Now, on its fifth installment, the series not only shares engaging and entertaining voices, but also acts as a vibrant place of community for all San Franciscans. Bonnie has been instrumental in leading Voices from the Kitchen. She has steered the events to take on diverse topics such as authenticity, race, and refuge. Bonnie works hard to research topics and reach out to speakers. She's explored different types of editions such as podcast and print. Ultimately, her diligence and passion has grown the events to achieve national attention. These stories have created broad connections in unexpected places. Her work has helped San Franciscans to expand their perspectives. Bonnie, I wish you the best in continuing your work for Voices from the Kitchen. Your hard work has made a positive impact in the community. Thank you for your dedication, and I look forward to seeing what Voices from the Kitchen has in store for San Francisco in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Board of Supervisors and Supervisor Sheehy, thank you. I really appreciate it. I am just honored beyond belief that Voices from the Kitchen, so it's called F&B Voices from the Kitchen for Food and Beverage Voices from the Kitchen. And I am tremendously honored that you're recognizing our event. I very much want to say that F&B Voices from the Kitchen is a team effort, and the core of that team includes Caleb Ziges, Aniela Venetiera, Jessica Mataka, and Megan Ortwood Russell. It's a treat for me to work with all of them. We have an advisory committee for our event, and that includes, I just want to read them all off because I want to give some recognition. Bonnie Swee, Alexis Madrigal, Rachel Levin, Jenny Lee, Pablo Lucaci, Shannon Farrell, Sharon Raza, Natasha Ruck, and Thomas McNaughton, all of whom give their talents and their times without any compensation other than the satisfaction of helping us create something new and wonderful. I'm also tremendously grateful to the writers and the food world people who perform at F&B. Over 75 performers have already performed with us. Of course, without the performers, there could be no storytelling. I'm fond of saying to people to come empty, and we will fill them up, their stomachs, their heads, and their hearts. F&B is an opportunity to showcase the food that the La Cucina entrepreneurs cook and to celebrate the voices and stories that are less often heard. And it's a place to create, it creates a place of community where curious and open-minded people can connect over the type of compelling stories that we are hungry for these days. I know that this may seem a little self-serving, but I think that F&B presents the very best of San Francisco. It's one of the many ways that La Cucina, because F&B Voices from the Kitchen is a project of La Cucina, it's one of the ways that La Cucina is keeping San Francisco the vibrant, diverse, and inclusive city that we all love. So I hope you all will frequent the La Cucina businesses. The food is fabulous, and behind every one of them, there is a woman who is hardworking, appreciative, and very much deserves our support. And I hope you will all come out to our F&B Voices from the Kitchen events. The next one will be next spring, and I'd love to see all of you there. So thank you very much for the recognition.
Thank you again and congratulations. And our final commendation for today will be given by Supervisor Fewer.
Thank you very much. Colleagues, this week I am pleased to honor an important service provider in the Richmond District and across San Francisco, Northeast Medical Services, otherwise known as NEMS. NEMS is one of the largest community health centers in the United States, targeting the medically underserved Asian population, and they have provided affordable, comprehensive, and quality health care services to medically underserved communities for over 46 years. Based in San Francisco, the nonprofit community health center offers comprehensive health care services to a variety of patients, a majority of whom are uninsured or low income. NEMS operates 12 clinics in the Bay Area, including 9 clinics in neighborhoods across San Francisco to serve our residents. NEM's expertise in providing culturally and linguistically competent health service has helped many low-income residents gain access to care, especially for the monolingual Chinese-speaking communities in my district. Their one-stop shop healthcare deliveries approach with its wide range of medical, dental, and ancillary services is both convenient and essential for populations that lack access to care in the city and county of San Francisco. NEMS offers linguistically competent and culturally sensitive healthcare services in many languages and dialects, including Cantonese, Mandarin, Taishanese, Vietnamese, Burmese, Korean, French, and Hindi. As the supervisor of the Richmond District, I am proud to support community health centers like NEMS, who are committed to providing affordable health care and increasing access to quality health care for underserved communities. Many of my constituents depend on NEMS, trust and have strong relationships with healthcare providers through NEMS, and it is important that their work is able to continue and expand. I am pleased to introduce Dr. Kenneth Tai, Chief Medical Officer at Northeast Medical Services.
Thank you, Supervisor Fewer and the Board of Supervisors. It's a great distinction and pleasure to be here to accept this accommodation on behalf of Northeast Medical Services. I, along with our CEO, Board of Directors, healthcare providers, and staff, are very appreciative of Supervisor Fewer for honoring NEMS and the services that we provide to the vulnerable population in San Francisco. I've had the pleasure of being a medical provider for NEMS for over 12 years now, and currently serve as the NEMS Chief Medical Officer. We have over 70 providers who offer a wide range of medical services and ancillary services to help strengthen the quality of care our patients deserve. What sets us apart is our multilingual, culturally sensitive service staff that allows patients to adequately express themselves in a familiar environment to increase the relevancy and excellence of care they receive. We stand ready to serve as a provider of choice for those with the greatest need to accessible health care, especially with residents with cultural, linguistic, and socioeconomic barriers. We pride ourselves in our ability to serve the Asian community in San Francisco Bay Area. With close to 50 years of experience serving our community in San Francisco, we will continue to provide clinical and operation quality, customer service, and access to ensure everyone have fair chance to receive good health care. Thank you, Supervisor Fuhr, for this recognition. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Congratulations and thank you for your service. Well, that ends our commendations for today. Congratulations to all the honorees. Thank you for being here, and thank you everyone for your patience. We enjoy honoring people here at the Board of Supervisors, especially those in the community who do incredible work, and so thank you so much for your patience in allowing us to do so. All right, with that, we will return to our agenda, and we will go to our first 3 p.m. special order. Madam Clerk, please call the Committee of the Whole.
Item 29 is a hearing pursuant to motion M17-122 approved by the Board of Supervisors on September 5th. Item 29 is a public hearing of the board convening in a committee of the whole today, October 24th at 3 p.m. to receive educational training on the board's legal obligations under federal and state securities laws with respect to any official statement approvals.
Thank you. Colleagues, today's Committee of the Whole is being conducted to educate board members regarding their legal obligations under the federal securities law with respect to any official statement approval that results from any bond the city may issue. And let's open up this hearing. First, we will hear from the Deputy City Attorney, Mark Blake, and then Disclosure Counsel, Sean Tinnery, will make comments after that. The presentation is expected to be 30 minutes. We will then open it up to public comment, and public commenters will have up to 2 minutes each. And then we will conclude our hearing. So let's open it up, beginning with Attorney Mark Blake.
Madam President, members of the board, my name is Mark Blake, Deputy City Attorney. My area of specialty is municipal finance, and I've been a practitioner in this area of the law for about 25 years. I'm joined today by Sean Tierney, a partner at the law firm of Hawkins, Delafield & Wood, the city's dedicated disclosure counsel. Hawkins, Delafield & Wood has for over 140 years assisted public bodies such as the city bring bond issues to market, and they are uniquely qualified to serve as the city's disclosure counsel, providing securities law advice when we bring issues to the market. Mr. Tierney will discuss the PowerPoint distributed to you after my initial comments. We both will be available to answer questions at the end of our presentation. On June 13, 2017, this board adopted Resolution 250-17 to approve the city's debt management policies and procedures. Under the policies, the city committed to periodically conduct securities law and disclosure training for board members and city staff to ensure that individuals who are involved in the bond issuance process are aware of their legal responsibilities and how to discharge their obligations. The big takeaway today is that when the city issues bonds, it is not directly regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, but it is nonetheless subject to the anti-fraud provisions of the securities laws, and that members of the board, city staff, are subject to sanction by the Securities and Exchange Commission and the Justice Department if we don't properly discharge our legal obligations. This means that the city, board members, and staff have potential legal exposure, both civil and criminal, anytime we access the public capital markets to raise funds for city projects. Having said that, the SEC actions in this area are infrequent, but we need to be mindful of the legal requirements and deliberate in our processes. The SEC views boards of public bodies as gatekeepers in the bond issuance process and require members of such boards to take steps to ensure that disclosure documents are not distributed to the investing marketplace containing material misstatements or material omissions. This means that the SEC looks to you to ensure that big and important financial challenges that the city faces, for example, pension funding, are accurately disclosed to investors so that investors can make an informed decision to invest in city bonds. Can you rely on staff? Of course you can, but that reliance has to be in good faith. With that being said, the Comptroller's Office of Public Finance and the City Attorney's Office takes the city's compliance with the federal securities laws as its most important undertaking. City staff have prepared debt management policies and procedures, established an internal disclosure practices working group, developed a careful and deliberate disclosure process, and retain experienced and highly regarded professionals for each transaction that comes before you. Most important, city staff are available to you and your staffs to answer any questions that you and other stakeholders of the city may have with respect to any bond issue. And so there is no kind of uninformed question, and we welcome any questions that you may have. So with that as an appetizer, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Tierney, who will walk through the presentation. Feel free to ask questions at any time as he goes through the PowerPoint presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Try to get up the PowerPoint. Oh, perfect. That's only the heading. Oh, I see. It goes point. Okay, got it. All right. All right. Greetings. It's a pleasure to be here, board and president. My name is Sean Tierney. I'm a partner in the law firm of Hawkins, Delafield, and Wood. Hawkins serves as disclosure counsel to the city. As disclosure counsel, we assist the city in the preparation of its disclosures to investors in the city's bonds. This presentation will provide training and cover the applicability of securities laws to board members when authorizing a bond sale. Thanks. What you will learn includes the applicable securities law, what is in an official statement, and how to discharge your duties under the law. Okay. Securities law overview will include the context for disclosure, the disclosure standards, and the SEC's litigation and enforcement actions, as well as private litigation. Okay. As Mark Blake indicated, the city's securities as municipal securities are exempt from registration with the SEC. The SEC's rules and regulations that prescribe particular forms for disclosure and periodic reporting for public companies have no direct application to the city's securities. However, the anti-fraud provisions of the federal securities laws do apply to disclosures made by the city. Anti-fraud provisions addressing misleading disclosure apply to all securities regardless of whether exempt from registration. In addition, the SEC regulates municipal securities brokers and dealers, those that buy and sell either an initial issuance by the city or subsequent resales. Also, pursuant to recent regulations, the SEC now regulates municipal advisors. So, what are the contexts for disclosure? Primary disclosure is primarily what we're discussing today. That includes official statements and preliminary official statements that are authorized by the board. That's the focus of the presentation. However, the city does other disclosure of secondary market disclosure pursuant to Rule 15C212. For each bond issue, the city enters into a continuing disclosure agreement, pursuant to which annual reports are made and notice filings. The city also does voluntary filings, both on EMMA, which is the official website where disclosures are posted, as well as on the city maintains an investor information webpage. The third context for disclosure is statements by the city or city officials that, quote, reasonably be expected to reach investors. It's not absolutely clear what those might be, but one clear example would be items posted on the city's website. All of these disclosures are subject to the anti-fraud rules. However, in practice, the board authorizes the official statements, and so that's going to be the focus of the presentation. Okay. The disclosure standard, as Mark explained, that's applicable, there's no registration, but there is anti-fraud laws that are applicable. Rule 10b-5 states the standard, the legal standard that applies. Quote, it is unlawful for any person to make any untrue statement of a material fact or to omit to state a material fact necessary in order to make the statements made in light of the circumstances under which they were made not misleading. So it's a mouthful, but the idea is to not leave out any omissions of material facts and to not make any misleading material factual statements. Now, many times clients will ask, well, what is material? How do we determine what's material and what isn't? There's case law that defines it as that something will be material in terms of an omission if, quote, substantial likelihood that under all the circumstances the omitted fact would have assumed actual significance in the deliberations of the reasonable investor. So the perspective of materiality is defined from the perspective of the investors in your bonds. So what types of litigation are there out there under the anti-fraud standards? Well, the SEC has three types of claims enforcement actions that it will take in three different venues. The administrative courts, where it can do an administrative action. These courts are staffed by SEC judges. They can do a civil claim, and they can refer a criminal claim to the Department of Justice, the most serious level. Also, private plaintiffs can take actions themselves, and we'll discuss that and distinguish that a bit as we go forward. Okay. A Rule 10b-5 securities action by the SEC has three elements. A materially misleading misstatement or omission, which we discussed in the 10b-5 standard, made or omitted with scienter, meaning fraudulent intent or recklessness. And finally, the foregoing in connection with the purchase or sale of a security. So those are the standards for the anti-fraud laws, the elements that need to be proved. In a private action by an investor or a bondholder in your bonds, There's two additional elements, actual damages and reliance on the misleading disclosure. In practice, you would need a default, a payment default most likely, to have a private investor take action. It's possible, it's very unlikely that the city would be in that situation. Okay, so SEC enforcement actions, they can be taken against the issuer, such as the city, individual board members, in theory, although that's not happened so far, governmental officials and employees, and third parties, underwriters, financial advisors, bond counsel, disclosure counsel. The SEC can also bring in action under Section 17, and the significance of that is that only a negligence standard is required. And they've been doing that frequently in recent years. So what is our guidance based on these legal standards? Would be that the city potentially has liability for materially misleading disclosure in any of the contexts we discussed. Official statements, filings with Emma, contractual and voluntary, and broadly any communications reasonably expected to reach investors. But the SEC's specific guidance is that the board members' responsibility is limited to the official statements that they authorize. So we're going to focus on that. The guidance that's the most detailed guidance was after the Orange County bankruptcy. The SEC did a big investigation and took enforcement action and wrote a long report, and the report focused especially on the obligations of the board. And the actions they did take or didn't take or omitted to take. So Orange County, just to refresh your recollection, concerned false and misleading statements in the offer and sale of over $2.1 billion of municipal securities, involving an investment pool strategy, and the fact that they did not disclose the risks of this strategy. The SEC obtained in federal district court injunctions against 2 county employees, and in an administrative proceeding, cease and desist orders against the county as the issuer and the county board of supervisors. The SEC did not bring enforcement action against the individual members of the board. The SEC did, however, write a report articulating its views of the federal securities laws, responsibility of members of a municipal legislative body. The Orange County report set forth the following 2 principles. Quote, number 1, quote, a public official may not authorize disclosure that the official knows to be false. Fairly intuitive. 2, quote, nor may a public official authorize disclosure while recklessly disregarding facts that indicate that there is a risk that the disclosure may be misleading. The first principle is, I think, fairly straightforward. But with respect to the second principle, what is meant by recklessly? Does it mean that each member of the body must review the final disclosure documents? Well, the report defines recklessly by describing it that the public official has knowledge of facts, bringing into the question the issuer's ability to repay the securities, and then fails to take steps appropriate under the circumstances to prevent the dissemination of those false or misleading information. With regard to the concept of steps that are appropriate under the circumstances, the Orange County report provides the following guidance. Such, quote, such steps could have included becoming familiar with the disclosure documents and questioning the issuer's officials, employees, or other agents about the disclosure of those facts. So what is your responsibility? In summary, if there are material adverse financial trends of which you are aware or objectively should have been aware, the issuer should reasonably investigate that trend. In other words, that trend should be investigated by staff and attorneys, and appropriate disclosure should be considered by the city. Excuse me. Just briefly, I was going to review some recent enforcement actions. The SEC has been very active in the last couple of years, last few years. Within the last 18 months, the town of Ramapo, New York, as well as Westlands Water District based in Fresno, the city of Miami, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey have all had enforcement action taken against them. Some significant aspects of these recent enforcement actions. Number one, the SEC has been very active, as I mentioned. These actions have held individuals liable and sought both personal financial penalties and industry bars from the municipal finance business. Such SEC actions have imposed significant fines on municipal issuers, not simply disgorgement of profits. There have been corresponding criminal convictions in connection with municipal bond offerings, and a possible jail term sentencing is expected to come down shortly in Ramapo. The SEC, for the first time, brought a jury trial against the municipality and won the case against a public official for securities law violations in Miami. The SEC required a municipal issuer to admit wrongdoing in a settlement of an SEC enforcement action, and that was in the Port Authority. Settlements previously did not typically require an admission of guilt. Some takeaways from these cases. The theme of the facts in most of them is that you should not try to hide low fund balances or weak revenues. That's how most of these issuers got into trouble. I would note there were no payment defaults in any of these cases. Nevertheless, the SEC successfully took action. Also, the settlement stressed the importance of written disclosure controls and procedures and having those in place, and we'll talk a little more about that. So, why disclosure controls and training? Well, as I mentioned, it's been repeatedly cited by the SEC as important as part of best practices and also, as a defense against negligence. It should minimize the risk of misleading disclosure, and it helps to defend against any charge of negligence or recklessness. This slide is a flow chart just to familiarize you. You're probably already familiar, but the typical topics that are covered in an official statement. You would find these sections in any of the city's official statements. Includes a description of the issuer, of course you, the security, financial information, the project that's being financed, the fact that it's tax exempt, whether the bonds can be called early, continuing disclosure obligation is described, and of course the risk factors. So this would be your typical subject matter in an official statement that you authorize. So a couple of observations, and Mark Blake can take responsibility for this page because I think, not literally, but he helped write this. Observation one, the investors and SEC have exquisite 20/20 hindsight, especially as to materiality. Observation two, when the question arises whether to disclose or not to disclose, see observation one. So I think that's very good advice. We would second that. And just a reminder, of course, even without a default, the SEC can impose civil penalties and even make criminal referrals in some cases. So what are the appropriate approaches to the board authorizing official statements? There are two basic approaches you can follow. One is to approve a copy of the final text. The second approach would be to authorize staff to prepare and approve the official statement based on reasonable reliance. Some questions that would be appropriate for the board to ask, or at least consider asking, when an official statement is approved. What is the purpose of the bond issue? What is the source of payment of the bonds? What are the risks that the source of payment may be insufficient to repay the bonds? Are there any factors that could pose a material risk to the issuer's financial position? Think litigation, fines, pension, OPEB liability, etc. as examples. Do I have knowledge of any other events that would affect the deliberation of a reasonable investor? Have such risks and events been brought to the attention of staff, disclosure counsel, bond counsel, or other professionals? Have such risks and events been disclosed? And if not, what is the rationale for the non-disclosure? And again, these questions are being informed by the Orange County report, what the SEC said they could have done in order to prevent the bad disclosure there. A couple more detailed questions would be, have we contractually agreed to provide continuing disclosure? Of course, the city would routinely do that. In reviewing the relevant portions of the OS, are there any red flags that should be brought to the attention of the financing team? We went over the typical sections of the OS previously. And would I like a further explanation of any of those sections? So with that, is it appropriate to authorize staff to prepare and approve an official statement? Perhaps after answering these two questions. Number one, do we have written disclosure controls and procedures? If we do, am I satisfied that the procedures followed in preparing the disclosure document have been reasonably designed to produce accurate and reliable information? Number two, do I have a reasonable basis to have confidence in the integrity and competence of the finance professionals? Three, do I know anything that would cause me to question the accuracy of the disclosure or that would indicate that there is a risk that those disclosures may be misleading? Four, with reference to the disclosure documents, do I know of any potentially material issues or, quote, red flags that should be brought to the attention of management or for which I would like further explanation? Oops. So to answer some of those questions and also to summarize and conclude, the city has written disclosure policies and procedures. They're on the controller's website as a section in the city's debt policy, so they're available for you and the entire world to review. The city conducts disclosure training regularly, periodically, as of course, we're doing now. The city has established a disclosure practice working group, including the Director of Public Finance, Nadia Sese. The city has engaged General Disclosure Counsel, which is my firm, Hawkins Delafield. And finally, the city has a Deputy City Attorney expert in disclosure, which is Mark Blake. So that concludes my presentation and the training, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and thank you very much.
Thank you for your presentation. Colleagues, are there any questions? Seeing none, we will open this up to public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to speak on this particular item? Mr. Gilberte? Okay, come on up. We'll wait for you.
Do we get credit for ethics training on this?
Mr. Givner?
No. I'm actually not sure and can look into whether those of you who are members of the bar can get any CLE credit, but I'll get back to you all on that.
definitely not worth taking the bar to get credit for that.
Members of the board, you know, the next time we do this presentation, we could include a couple ethics slides in this so that you get ethics credit, because there are ethical considerations here. So,
okay, Mr.
But not the kind of ethics credit that I think Supervisor Peskin is asking about, which is the AB 1234 training.
Colleagues.
Mr. Gilberte?
I'm curious about how this applies to contracts and performance, in the sense that we have the Central Freeway, the Central Underground, that's now 2 years behind schedule, and the Van Ness Muni issue is like already 1 year behind, and it's not even 1 year old. So would this apply? Would this be helpful? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment on this particular item? Seeing none, public comment is closed. All right, we will now convene as the Board of Supervisors. Seeing that there are no other issues or questions, we will go back to our regular agenda. All right, we left off with roll call for introductions. So Supervisor Safai, we will finish up with you, and then I know go to Supervisor Cohen, and then we will go back to our other 3 p.m. special order. Supervisor Safai.
Thank you, Madam President. The two things that I have for roll call for introductions today have to do with in memoriams. One, I talked earlier about May Wong. I can talk more when we get to that portion of the meeting. But the second one, I know many members of the board here also probably have some words to say about Mr. Larry Martin. Larry Martin was a former head of TW. Are you doing that? Oh, you didn't know. Okay, sorry. So we can talk more about it at the in memoriam, but former head of the Transit Workers Union, longtime District 11 resident, member of the labor movement, and longtime resident of my district in Lakeview community. It's very sad that he passed away this past week as well. We've had quite a few passings in the past week, and we can talk more about it at in memoriam, but want to end the meeting in Mr. Larry Martin's honor, as well as May Wong. Do it now? Okay. So I'll say a little bit more. Larry Martin was, as I said, a pillar in the labor movement. He was a powerful, powerful leader of the Transit Workers Union, Local 250. Many of you had a lot of experience and have had a lot of experience with Local 250. It's one of the unions in the city that has a significant African American membership and leadership, and has been very, very strong in terms of the labor movement here in San Francisco. But they're also known as a member of the labor movement and union that is very independent. And any of you that have interacted with that union, they speak their mind, they organize, they come, and they come with a strong voice. And Mr. Larry Martin embodied that. He was a civil rights leader, fighting for the rights of the African American community every day of his life. He went on to always be known as the members' president. So he was very fondly referred to within his own union. He served on the Human Rights Commission, creating legislation that protected the dignity and rights of San Francisco's for years to come. And then he ended up also serving on the Recreation and Parks, and as well as the Planning Department. So our sincere condolences go out to his family, and it's sad that he passed. I think there's other members of the board who would probably like to say a few words about Mr. Martin. I see them making motions to me, but if not, we can do it later.
Madam President,
Through the chair.
I was just going to suggest
Supervisor Peskin?
I was just going to suggest it be from the entire board.
Oh, we ended in his, yeah, that's great.
Okay, can we adjourn the meeting on behalf of Mr. Larry Martin, on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors, without objection? Without objection, we will do so. Thank you, Supervisor Safai.
And then I pretty much said everything that I wanted to say about May Wong. I just wanted to give one little story, and we could also end in her honor. One one of the last correspondences I got from her, and this is the kind of person she was. She was very, very direct and to the point and spoke her mind, whether you wanted to hear it or not. And so she sent me a message that pretty much told me some very clear advice on how I present myself. One was, I'm no longer a labor organizer, so wear black shoes, don't wear brown shoes. Today I have on maroon shoes. She said, when I come back from vacation, remember to shave. She said the unshaved look is not appropriate for a supervisor, so unless it's, of course, purposeful, Supervisor Peskin. And then she also told me to make sure that I did a newsletter in a certain way. She had very clear advice for me, so all I said was, thank you, Auntie May, and I appreciate your constructive criticism, and I take it to heart. And that's the kind of person she was, and I really, really appreciated her. So I also ask that we end in her honor. Thank you. The rest I submit.
Thank you, Supervisor Safai. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. It's a very somber occasion. First, I want to bring an order of business to everyone's attention. Today, I'm introducing legislation declaring the second Monday in October to be Indigenous Peoples Day, and I hope that you all will be able to join me in making this a reality. I want to recognize the efforts of the affiliated tribes of Northwest Indians, among other dedicated Native people groups. I have for years encouraged the cities and states to begin to implement such a change. I think all of us in this room agree that this should have been done a long time ago. We're declaring Indigenous People Day to recognize the rich cultural fabric that existed on this continent for millennia, to acknowledge the immense contributions to our literary traditions, to our musical traditions, to our understanding of science and nature and mathematics. We are declaring Indigenous Peoples Day to recognize a history of discrimination inflicted upon Indigenous people across the United States and across the Western Hemisphere. We are declaring Indigenous Peoples Day not only to forge a new tradition, but to also to raise up and to recognize a culture. And I want to thank all of you for your considerations of this day. I'd like to also pay respects to Supervisor Ronan and the leadership that she's demonstrated on the language that she's introduced for a cultural heritage district. I think that overall there is a welcoming attitude towards the legislation, and there may be a few tweaks that we'll need to make in order to get it passed, but I'm happy to do the work with you. With that said, I have a few in memoriams. I also want to recognize many people who have passed away that we've discussed today in the chamber. I think as a member of the Board of Supervisors, you have a unique perspective to celebrate and uplift those that are doing good work and showing outstanding leadership, and also celebrating the work and the life and the times of those who have passed and who have transitioned on. Supervisor Safai spoke of Larry Martin, who I did not know passed away, but he is the father of my good friend from high school, Iris Martin Lopez, who is also a city employee employed by the PUC. So I'd like to ensure the Martin family that this body expresses our condolences. Larry Martin was amazing, labor leader. I remember him early in my career in the early to the mid 2000s. He had a whole crew of folks that would come in and do labor negotiations with Steve Cava. And so he will fondly be missed, but his fingerprints are all over the transportation union, both 250 as well as 250A. He touched both of those locals. I also want to recognize May Wong, too, who's been an incredible advocate for McLaren Park. McLaren Park touches District 9, District 10, and District 11, and it has been amazing to watch the advocacy naturally grow from a love and a desire to see this park thrive. And you have constituents from 9, 10, and 11, and May Wong was unique. You could always count on her to be out there with constructive criticism or feedback,
with a sun visor. Do you guys remember that sun visor? That's like her signature piece. And so that's one of the things that I will miss most about Miss Wong. And in final closing, I have an in memoriam I want to offer up for one of my own constituents, a wonderful human being by the name of Jeffrey Betcher. Jeff, we lost Jeff on Saturday, October 21st, to colon cancer. Jeff bravely fought for his option to self-administer his passing under our state's right to die law. Jeff was a remarkable community leader who was a critical part of the Bayview community. He moved to the Casada Avenue about 25 years ago and one of San Francisco's most blighted neighborhoods. The traffic island was where people would throw old tires and garbage. And with a handful of neighbors, he poured energy and love into transforming the island into the Casada Gardens that you can see now and that are very popular. Today, there are over 20 community gardens in the Bayshore, Hunters Point, and I want to acknowledge that Jeff Betcher exemplified tremendous leadership in spearheading and leading the Casada Gardens initiative. He will sorely be missed by his community and friends. Jeff was a warm and loving and friendly, just remarkable community builder. He had a beautiful smile, a funny sense of humor. There will be a special place in heaven for Jeff. He left this world a better place. And with that, the rest I submit. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Cohen. Madam President, that concludes the introduction of new business.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Let's go to public comment, please.
The next item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the entire Board of Supervisors for 2 minutes on items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board, to include the meeting minutes of September 19th and the items 44 and 45 on the without reference to committee calendar. Pursuant to the board's rules of order, director remarks to the entire Board of Supervisors. Speakers using interpretation assistance will be allowed twice the amount of time to testify. And if you would like to display a document on the overhead projector, please clearly state such to SFGOV TV and then remove the document when you'd like the screen to return to live coverage of the meeting. First speaker, please.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Supervisors, I again call for your resignations. You have violated your oaths of office. You swore to uphold the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Yet you countenanced the operation of Citywide Case Management Community Focus, hereafter Citywide, a joint program with University of California, San Francisco, which the City and County of San Francisco funds in the amount of approximately $100 million per year. Citywide is the city and county's assertive community treatment program. As such, it is responsible for involuntarily medicating and performing involuntary medical and surgical procedures on residents of this city and county. It is able to do this only by depriving them of life and liberty without due process of law, guaranteed by U.S. Constitution Amendment 5. Citywide also violates its patients' rights to freedom of mentation, freedom of association, and the right to petition the government with grievances, all protected by U.S. Constitution Amendment 1. Citywide perpetrates and uses information from unreasonable searches and seizures without warrants in violation of U.S. Constitution Amendment 4. Citywide exacts cruel and unusual punishment on its patients in violation of U.S. Constitution Amendment 8. Citywide uses medicine to unnecessarily control its patients. Because it gives them no avenue of complaint, it violates U.S. Constitution Amendment 13. Citywide is able to operate by denying its patients equal protection of the laws in violation of U.S. Constitution Amendment 14. You are knowledgeable of these violations and have done nothing to prevent them. Therefore, you have violated your oaths of office. I call for your resignations. Back to you, Madam Clerk.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please. Thank you.
Next speaker, please.
Yes, hello. My name is Charlie Peters, Clean Air Performance Professionals, and we represent motorists interested in issues that affect people's cars. This last couple of days, I ran across some interesting information of somebody that I've known for quite a while, that I found it very interesting that she had a strong agreement with a previous member of this body, Mr. Gavin Newsom, on the issue of health insurance. He is now on the Board of Supervisors of the County of Los Angeles, and she's been appointed to the Air District Board over concerns that the Republicans would take over the Air District Board, which they did. They're in the process of implementing, replacing all the jobs with robots, all the transportation, etc. And I intend to have a conversation concerning this and providing some documentation of that effect in the Hayward City Council this evening. And I'm honored and appreciate the fact that you allow me to speak here this afternoon, because what you do is very important. And as far as I'm concerned, the most important, the most effective, most powerful people in the country is the county level representation of the public, being the sheriff and the Board of Supervisors. So it's a great honor to be here, and I would very much appreciate issues affecting our transportation and our future that are on the cusp as we speak, being considered at the federal level, being considered at the state level, and I think that's very important for us to act appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you. Tom Gilberti, I've made a mistake. One Oak, the 40-story luxury condos, calling it a monument to the 1%. That's still correct. On-site, 100% for the 1%. Calling it a tombstone of a brilliant opportunity at the hub of one of the best transit spots in the city, where we could weave the people who make our city, the police, the teachers, nurses, the muni workers, city workers, a dynamic, full function, you might say, tailored for our city. But no, we can't do that. That's a tombstone. No, that's correct. Again, 100% for the 1%. Our mayor says our city tax code needs this. Members of the board here say it's a good deal for our city. 30% somewhere else, and of that, half of that 30%, a little bit less, go for some of the people living in our city. Segregated, integrated housing. This is segregated housing, 100% for the 1%. It's a Bernie moment here in our city. It's a direction of where we want to take this city. And I made the mistake of saying that you guys were the ones that can do this, and no, there's nobody in this room that can do this. It's the people that are going to hear this or see this or get wind of it someday that are going to say, no, this is not the way to go. And it's the people outside of this room that are going to say, we can do this. We don't have to go 100% for the 1%. We can do better, much, much better. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Before the next speaker, if there are any other members of the public who would like to address the board in general public comment, please come to the microphone. Next speaker, please.
Just a quick correction. We made a little mistake in referring to the LGBTs. Remember, we knocked off those last two letters. There's L's and there's G's. There's no B's or T's. Thank you very much. There's male and there's female. Some females are L's and some are not. Some males are G's and some are not. Now, today I'd like to talk about a prophecy about Jesus. This was written 700 years before Jesus came down to this earth and 300 years after David had died. And he talks about this other David that is coming into the world. And it says, incline your ear and come unto me, hear, and your soul shall live, and I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. Behold, I have given him for a witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people. And then we go on over to the Luke chapter 22. Likewise also the cup after supper, saying, this cup is the New Testament in my blood, which is shed for you. But behold, the hand of him that betrayeth me is with me on the table. So the covenant that David is going to give was the new covenant, the New Testament. And there's no doubt that Jesus is the David spoken of, Jesus Christ. He is God's beloved Son. And when we had the Mount of Transfiguration, when the Lord Jesus Christ was transfigured and Moses and Elijah were standing there, all of a sudden God the Father spoke and he said, "This is my beloved Son in whom I am well pleased. Hear him."
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please. Sir, you're welcome to come over to the other microphone and use it. Just pull the microphone up to reach. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Honey Mahogany. I know many of you. Thank you for being here, supervisors, and hearing public comment. I just want to say thank you again, specifically to Supervisors Kim and Ronan, for your support of the cultural districts, and for all the rest of the supervisors who have supported cultural districts and who are interested in pursuing them in their districts. I think that they're a really important tool in keeping San Francisco, in preserving the culture and the spirit of our city. And if there are any supervisors who see the need of creating cultural districts in their own districts, to please reach out to us. We'd be happy to support your efforts and work with you. So thank you again for your continued work, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you for your comments, and my apologies if I got it wrong. Apologies. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrea Horn, and I've lived in San Francisco. Well, I got my first apartment in 1979, but I started coming here when I was a 15-year-old runaway in 1967. I'm here in support of the cultural districts, and I particularly want the Trans Compton's Cafeteria Cultural District. It is so incredibly important. This district, this cultural district, is a game changer, and it's going to change the trajectory of so many people's lives. And I would just like to say that don't forget about the artists in San Francisco that made San Francisco what it is, and the freaky people are the ones why Twitter just put a billion-dollar building up down the street, because of the artistic people that are here already. So I just don't want us to become a soulless corporate entity. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Shannon, and I'm also a proponent of these cultural districts. I live in the Castro, and I owned a business, and I hope to own another business in the transgender district, and I also hang out in the leather district. So these are all places that are important to me, and I look forward to having them around for a really long time. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Thank you. My name's Master Steve Rapport. I teach Taekwondo in San Francisco. As an immigrant, my relationship with the Constitution of the United States was always based on a vague admiration for its formal codification of the principles of democratic government. Since the election, my interest in the Constitution has steadily increased in inverse proportion to the flouting of its principles by Trump, the man who was elected by a minority of voters to the highest political position in the land. In the last 9 months, we've seen this president continually flout the laws, ethics, oaths, values and rules of this nation. But it's become painfully obvious that there's no simple enforcement mechanism for the provisions of the Constitution. It's up to us, we the people, to protect the tenets of our great democracy. And it's our responsibility and within our rights to seek the removal from office of those who would flout, defy, or otherwise defile those tenets. Impeachment, the monumental remedy for high crimes and misdemeanors, was invoked against Richard Nixon for 1 count of obstruction of justice. It was invoked against Bill Clinton for 1 count of perjury. Yet this awful man is undermining the Constitution and committing high crimes and misdemeanors by words and deeds on a daily basis. Today, the entire world faces down an urgent existential crisis created by the malignant narcissist in the White House. And it's a moral imperative for the city of San Francisco to assume its historically courageous leadership role and call for Trump's impeachment and removal from office. Our San Francisco elected officials swore an oath of office to support the Constitution of the United States, and standing up to a tyrannical and increasingly authoritarian president who disdains and diminishes the Constitution is therefore a solemn civic duty. That requires courage, leadership, and moral rectitude. We, the people, today thank our San Francisco supervisors, in particular Supervisor Sandra Lee Feuer, for demonstrating that courage and leadership, and we encourage every member of this Board of Supervisors to pass this message of ours to Congress and to impeach the President of the United States. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Yes, my name's Martha Keller, and I live in Sandra Fewer's district, and I want to thank her very much for her words that we heard at the rally today. And I just want to give my perspective on the petition, and I would like a special focus to be on the excesses and abuses that Mr. Trump has shown in his violation of the Constitution. Every false news, every exclusion of the media outlets from any kind of press coverage infringes on the freedom of the press. He also infringes on the courts, and every disparaging remark that he makes about the courts and their ruling violates his oath of office, in which requires him to recognize and uphold the courts as a separate, equal branch of government. And this branch is here to protect us from demagogues. I believe we have a demagogue in the Oval Office, and I urge this body to support Sandra Fewer's resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon, Council, or Board of Supervisors, I should say. You can see I'm a visitor from Alameda across the bay. My name is Katie Cameron. I represent Alameda for impeachment. We passed a resolution very similar to yours in March, and we have subsequently worked with 15 other cities and counties across the United States, and more to come, who have also passed this resolution, including the city of Los Angeles. That happened in June. So I really want to say that we are part of one larger community that are all deeply affected by what is going on with this current president. And you, the city, are the closest governmental unit that we, the people, have. Otherwise, we're speaking one at a time, calling our congresspeople, writing our letters. The only way that we can collect our voice together is with you. And so we are begging you from our heart to join the other cities and counties across the United States that are speaking up and urging Congress to do its job, specifically the House Judiciary, Representative Bob Goodlatte, who has what I call a psychiatric condition that it focuses on Hillary's emails. He's just reinvestigating them again. I think the mental illness in the White House is a spreading disease, and we need to stop it. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Before the next speaker speaks, I'll just remind the members of the public there's a board rule against audible applause. So if you wouldn't mind, you can show your supportive fingers as such. Next speaker, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Hunt. I'm super happy to be here and this beautiful room in front of all of you assembly people that work so hard to voice our concerns. San Francisco is home to many people who have come here from other places to try to live a free life, to try to maybe invent their own lives, and not be judged by it, not be pushed down by it. So they come here. San Francisco also is a home to many people who are trying to find a brighter future for their family through great opportunities in the tech world and the financial world, great opportunities in the arts world. So that's why they come here. They experience a great pressure to be in San Francisco from wherever they are. I, on the other hand, feel a great pressure on the opposite to not leave, to not feel pushed out, because I am a native resident of San Francisco, went to Reardon High School. I see a lot of changes, but changes happen, especially in this beautiful city. So in 20 years, it's not going to look the same as it looks today. However, one thing about this conversation surrounding cultural districts leads me to believe that these things, putting money into these cultural districts, is a way to conserve and halt certain changes, to give opportunities to people of limited means to establish a tradition in San Francisco. I live right now in the leather district, or the potential leather district of South of Market. South of Market has ingrained a huge...
Thank you for your comments. Thank you kindly. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Kendra Dunson. I reside here in the city of San Francisco. I want to say thank all of you board, San Francisco board. Each one of you get a star. And I think the transgender cultural district would be something exciting. I think it will put a star on this city because we all stars. And other girls like myself can come and they can see the historic movement that we are making and the shifting and the shaking that we are doing in this city. And with all that, that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Bryce De La Cruz. I live in San Francisco. I've been a resident here for about 4 years now, and I'm here in support of the cultural district. It's scary to see folks like myself's rights being questioned, and it's scary to see that happen every day. So I'm just here to talk on behalf of how I want my rights to be endured and rather than questioned. I'm here interning 2 jobs. I work full-time, and it's scary to see that that could be in question one day. So I just want to have my voice be heard. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Madam President, it doesn't seem as though there are any other members of the public.
Are there any other members of the public who'd like to provide public comment at this time? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. And Madam Clerk, let's go back to our 3 p.m. special item, the appeal.
Items 30 through 33, Madam
Yes,
President? Okay.
please.
Items 30 through 33 comprise the hearing at 3 p.m. for persons interested in or objecting to the certification of a final environmental impact report for the proposed Pier 70 mixed-use district project. Item 31 is the motion to affirm the FEIR. Item 32 is the motion to reverse the Planning Commission's decision to prepared for the proposed Pier 70 mixed-use district project. And item 33 is a motion to direct the clerk to prepare findings.
Colleagues, as we all know, this appeal was withdrawn, and I'd like to open it up to public comment. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this particular item at this time? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much, colleague. This is great. I'm really pleased that the appeal was withdrawn. I'm sure you guys are as well. I know Mark Farrell is. We will get to the Pier 70 related item later on. I think it's coming up next, if I'm not mistaken. So I just want to acknowledge a few people that really deserve significant acknowledgement. First, the project sponsor, Forest City. They have an entire team of hired smart people, and I just want to acknowledge all of them back there in the chamber, and some I think might be in the hallway. Thank you to the project sponsor, and I want to recognize and uplift the staff from both OEWD and SFMTA that got to the table, rolled up their sleeves, and helped us formulate an answer and a response and a path forward that led to ultimately the appeal being withdrawn. I also want to recognize the neighbors that were connected to this project, the boosters who worked with us to have good faith and have honest negotiations that also assisted us in the withdrawing of the appeal. And so with that, I look forward to discussing the other Pier 70 items. So Madam President, without further ado, let's get it on.
Okay, colleagues, this hearing has been held and is now filed, and I will entertain a motion to approve item number 31 and table item 32 and 33, moved by Supervisor Cohen, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Madam Clerk, on the item, please call the roll.
Supervisor Sheehy.
Aye.
Sheehy, aye. Supervisor Tang.
Aye.
Tang, aye. Supervisor Yee.
Aye.
Yee, aye. Supervisor Breed.
Aye.
Breed, aye. Supervisor Cohen.
Aye.
Cohen, aye. Supervisor Farrell.
Aye.
Farrell, aye. Supervisor Fewer.
Aye.
Fewer, aye. Supervisor Kim. Kim, aye. Supervisor Peskin.
Aye.
Peskin, aye. Supervisor Ronan. Ronan, aye. Supervisor Safai.
Aye.
Safai, aye. There are 11 ayes.
The motion is adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please call items 39 through 41.
Items 39 through 41 were considered by the Land Use and Transportation Committee at a regular meeting on Thursday, October 23rd, and were referred without recommendation as committee reports to the board. Item 39 is an ordinance to amend the general plan to revise maps 4 and 5 of the urban design element to refer to the Pier 70 mixed-use project special use district and to make CEQA findings and other appropriate findings. Item 40 is an ordinance to amend the planning code and the zoning map to add the Pier 70 special use district and to make the appropriate findings. And item 41 is a resolution to approve the compromise title settlement and land exchange agreement for Pier 70 between the city and the California State Lands Commission in furtherance of the Pier 70 mixed-use project located at Pier 70 and to adopt the appropriate findings.
Supervisor Cohen.
Thank you very much. So, colleagues, I'm pleased to present some amendments for your consideration today. Just some background for you as a reminder, this has been a long project that's taken years to shape. We've done years of outreach and concept development, and the Pier 70 project has evolved into a clear vision to reintegrate and restore 28 acres, a 28-acre site into the fabric of San Francisco. We're going to be creating active, sustainable neighborhood that recognizes its industrial past. And for those that have not been out to the project site, I want to invite you to come get a tour. The defining features of the Pier 70 waterfront is that there isn't one. It's that at least it hasn't been accessible to the general public for decades. It's been fenced off. It's been inaccessible, but no more. We're going to be moving forward. Quite literally, people who just live blocks away from the bay will have a way to experience the waterfront and open space in their neighborhood. So beyond access to this project, the key highlights that I think are notable are $750 million worth of public benefits. Not bad, huh, Jane Kim? $750 million of public benefits, including affordable housing with 30% on-site affordability, transportation improvements and funding, workforce development, historic rehabilitation of beautiful buildings, open space and parks, and seawater level rise protection. And, frankly, there's a lot more that this project has to offer. I am proud, again, of the Mayor's Office of Economic and Workforce Development, the Port, the Planning Commission, the Planning Department, our project sponsor, and just the overall community that have been involved in this very long project. So, colleagues, today, what you have before you is I have introduced a set of amendments to the Planning Code. This is specifically item 40 today. I've circulated them to you, but in summary, there are a few changes that I'd like to read into the record, if you don't mind. First, I'd like to recognize the references to describe the Affordable Housing Program, requirement for Historical Preservation Commission hearings, changes to timing as it relates to new construction and hearing for major modifications, and language related to the determination of completeness. And finally, a cap on the amount of office in the project. I want to thank my colleagues on the Land Use Committee, particularly Supervisor Peskin, for lending his expertise and his comments, the department staff, the community project sponsor. So with that, I hope that we can make a motion to adopt these amendments. It's my understanding that these are substantive and have to be re-referred to the Land Use Committee. Is that correct, sir?
Deputy City Attorney is nodding his head yes. So it will be re-referred to the Land Use Committee just as a matter of procedure. And with that, I'd like to request that we continue items 39 and 40 to the October 31st board meeting so that we can hear all of the Pier 70 items together next Tuesday.
Okay, just for clarity, Supervisor Cohen, this will go to land use on Monday and come out as a committee report?
Yes, that is correct.
Supervisor Cohen has made a motion to amend item number 40, seconded by Supervisor Peskin. Colleagues, can we take the amendment without objection? Without objection, the amendment passes. And on the item as amended, she's also made a motion to send it back to land use. Can we do that without, is there a second?
October 30th.
No, item number 40 has been requested to send that back to land use, and is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection.
And Madam President, that is to the October 30th meeting, to the land use meeting.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Can we do that without objection? Without objection, this item will go to Land Use Committee on October 30th. And the Supervisor Cohen made a motion to continue items 39 and 41 to the meeting of October 31st, 2017. Is there a second? Seconded by Supervisor Safai. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, these items will be continued to next week. Madam Clerk, let's go to our items for adoption without reference to committee.
Items 44 and 45 are being considered for adoption without reference to committee. These items could be approved today by a single roll call vote unless a supervisor would like to sever an item and have it considered separately.
Seeing none, colleagues, can we take these items, the same house, same call? Without objection, those items are adopted unanimously. Madam Clerk, please read the in memoriams.
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following individuals. Madam President, we have a closed session. We have a closed session.
Madam Clerk, let's go to our closed session. Please call item number 34.
Item 34 is a closed session for the Board of Supervisors to convene today, October 24th, for the purpose of conferring with or receiving advice from the City Attorney regarding the existing litigation in which the City is a defendant and appellee with the American Beverage Association, the California Retailers Association, and the California State Outdoor Advertising Association versus the City and County of San Francisco, filed in the United States District Court for the Northern District of California on July 24th. This hearing is pursuant to a motion that was approved, M17-161, on October 17th, 2017.
Colleagues, can I entertain a motion to convene into closed session? Moved by Supervisor Yee, seconded by Supervisor Ronan. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment on this item before we go into closed session? Mr. Gilberte, come on up.
Tom Gilberti, personally, I think everybody would like to hear what's going on after we close this off, but I'm just speaking for myself. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comments. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, public comment is now closed. Colleagues, can we take the motion without objection? Without objection, we will now convene into closed session. I will need everyone who is in the chamber.
SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television. SF Gov TV, San Francisco Government Television.
Neighborhoods in San Francisco are as diverse and fascinating as the people who inhabit them. Today, we're in the Western Addition in District 5, where we'll hang with Supervisor London Breed, get cooking with Community Grows, and experience firsthand the renaissance underway at the Buchanan Mall. Buchanan Mall was designed as a pedestrian walk to connect city blocks from Grove to Turk Streets. Once beset by turf conflicts and escalating violence, today Buchanan Mall is reviving its communal spirit with an urban garden at the center of it all.
This is where anyone who grew up in this neighborhood, who spent any time outside, we hung out in Buchanan Mall.
Yeah.
We talked to one another, we hung with one another. We just made it work. We had fun together. The good news is that it seems like the activation is bringing the community back to the area. This garden, I think, can do a lot for bringing the community together. My hope is that with these cooking demos, that'll bring folks out and they'll start talking to one another when they probably normally wouldn't do that.
Crystal Jones started cooking as soon as she could talk. She's the seed-to-mouth coordinator for Community Grows, an organization that teaches cooking and nutrition in low-income neighborhoods, sanctifying growing spaces and nourishing communities.
The idea for this when this started was to have this be a very calming sort of place of, I guess, pause and for congregating. I see more people out. I see kids out here playing. It feels safer. If you create these inviting, sort of beautiful spaces, people are less inclined to want to mess them up. It allows them to want to instill some sort of ownership over this good thing.
Before we did this Buchanan Mall project, I hadn't walked through here in about over 10 years because of the dynamics of the neighborhood.
For residents like Tyrone Mulling, who co-founded Green Streets, a local business that offers recycling and composting services for affordable housing properties, activation of the Buchanan Mall has created opportunities that benefit both the environment and the community at large.
It's the beauty of the whole mission, knowing from where we came from, me and Dolph was on the prison yard together. And now we stand here today pushing good energy out for those people around us. I learned business through this. Now I can share business with my community.
Manufacturing in cities creates this perfect platform for people to earn livelihoods and to create a platform for more equitable economic prosperity. I'm Kate Sophis. I'm co-founder and CEO of SF Made. SF Made is a public-private partnership with the City of San Francisco to help manufacturers start, grow, and stay right here in San Francisco. SF Made really provides wraparound resources for manufacturers that sets us apart from other small business support organizations who provide more generalized support. Everything we do has really been developed over time by listening and thinking about what manufacturers need to grow. For example, we'll do very traditional economic development things like helping companies access capital, find small business loans, provide technical business advising and education. We have had some great experience doing what you might call pop-ups or temporary selling events. And maybe the most recent example was one that we did as part of SF Made Week in partnership with the city's Office of Small Business, where we created a 100-company selling day right here at City Hall in partnership with Mayor Lee and the Board of Supervisors. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for many of our smaller manufacturers who may be 1 or 2 person shops and who don't have the wherewithal to have their own dedicated retail store to really have a place to show their product and to access new customers. For us, it still comes back to how do we help companies get more money into their businesses, develop more customers and more relationships so that they can grow, so that they can hire here in San Francisco.
I'm Amy Cashel, and I've been the owner of Amy Cashel San Francisco for about 18 years now. We make everything here in San Francisco. We started our line with wedding gowns, I think you can see behind me, and about a year ago we launched a ready-to-wear collection. San Francisco is a great place to do business in terms of clientele. We have really wonderful brides from all walks of life and doing really interesting things. Architects, doctors, lawyers, teachers, artists, other like-minded entrepreneurs. So really, really fantastic women to work with. I think it's important for them to know where their clothes are made and how they're made.
My name is Jefferson McCarley, and I'm the General Manager of Mission Bicycle Company. We sell bikes made here for people that ride here. Essentially, we sell city bikes made for riding in urban environments. Our core business really is to build bikes specifically for each individual. We care a lot about craftsmanship, we care a lot about quality, we care a lot about good design, and people respond to that. And when people come in, we like to spend time with them going to what we call the design wall, and we throw all the components up there, and we can talk about handlebar setups, and we can talk about the riding position. They can see the colors coming together, and we take notes all over the wall. It's a pretty fun shopping experience.
For me as a designer, I love the control. I can walk into the workroom every morning, see what everyone's working on, talk to my cutter, my pattern maker, work really closely on the designs. Going through the sewing room, I'm looking at it, Runkamon's looking at it, everyone on the team is kind of getting involved and how does that drape look? Is this what she's expecting if we've maybe made some customizations to a dress, which is something we can do because we're here making everything locally. Over the years, we've become really a big tech city. And with so much change with technology and social media, and it's incredibly exciting, and it's a great place to be, but it's also, you know, you constantly have to really pay attention and focus on where things are going and what the right decisions are as a business owner.
Sometimes it's appropriate to bring in an expert and to offer suggestions and guidance and coaching and counseling. And then other times, we just need to talk to each other. We need to talk to other manufacturers that are facing similar problems, other people that are in the trenches just like us, and so that I can share with them a solution that we came up with to manage our inventory, and they can share with me an idea that they had about how to overcome another problem.
Moving forward, where we see ourselves down the road, maybe 5 and 10 years, is really looking at our business from a little bit more of a ready-to-wear perspective and making things that are really thoughtful and mindful of the end user, how they're going to use it, whether it's the ready-to-wear piece or a wedding gown. Are they going to wear it again? And incorporating all that into the collection. So that's pretty exciting for us, and that's the direction I see our business going in.
The real reason we are so enamored with the work we do is we really do see it as creating a platform for change and making this city everything it has always been, and making sure that we are sharing the opportunities that we've been so blessed to have economically and culturally with as many people as possible, broadening that platform.
Neighborhoods in San Francisco are as diverse and fascinating as the people who inhabit them. The up-and-coming Bayview neighborhood continues to grow and change for the better. As new startup businesses springing up along the 3rd Street corridor join locally owned restaurants, nonprofits, and artist-friendly collaborative spaces, the neighborhood's community appeal is growing too.
What anchors me to the community that I serve is really a very personal connection. This is the main artery of the southeastern neighborhoods because it goes around Visitation Valley and it goes straight down past the ballpark and into the south of Market. This corridor is where the hub of all the activity that's happening in San Francisco.
I am Barbara Grotta of Grotta Wines in the Bayview. Before opening this space, we were part of the Bayview underground food scene. And we were doing the pop-up market through the Opera House, the Bayview Opera House, every Thursday. And I met a lot of vendors because it was all small local people putting their wares out to the community.
Barbara Grotta, Grotta Wines is an example and a symbol of how the neighborhood is changing, but changing in a very positive way. So you've got literally homemade wine that's being made here and sold here in the community, but you have organized businesses, both new businesses and old businesses, coming together to revive this 3rd Street corridor. This is a Tri-Fusion, is a yoga studio that opened up about a year and a half ago.
I actually think that being a part of this community and what's going on in the Bayview, I've lived here for 17 years and have always wanted to have some type of a business down on 3rd Street. And to actually be doing it and to have the support of the community and how everybody works together to help each other move each other forward. I mean, it's been a wonderful run with everybody that's out here.
But they're hiring locally, they're selling locally.
And it really does feel to me like a community effort.
Family matters. Obviously the weather is beautiful, but you know, this is, I think, where you can really capture the real vibe of San Francisco. I love it. I can go on and on and on about life here in the Bayview.
Shall we get started? You ready, Mr. Mayor? Yes. Wonderful. So, good morning, everyone, and thank you all for being here. I'm Andrea Miller, and I'm the president of the National Institute for Reproductive Health. And I would like to start by thanking Mayor Lee, Director Garcia, who I believe is right behind me, and Supervisor Yee for joining us today, and I know we may be joined by some other tremendous elected officials here in San Francisco. I'm also thrilled to be joined today by our partners at the Planned Parenthood of Northern California, Gilda Gonzalez, whom you'll hear from in a moment, and to also recognize some of the other really important members of the women's health advocacy and provider community here in San Francisco. Amy Everett from NARAL Pro-Choice California, Sylvia Castillo from Essential Health Access, Libby Benedict with Physicians for Reproductive Health, and Diana Taylor with the American Nurses Association. And then there are many others behind me who represent such a tremendous wealth of activity and positive momentum here in San Francisco for women's reproductive health and lives. I love being in San Francisco. This is a beautiful city, and as I've been saying to everyone, she put on her prettiest dress for me today, and I appreciate it. It's just gorgeous here. I'm especially excited to be here when I can do so with exciting and positive news, which I think we could all use more of these days. For those of you who are not familiar with our organization, the National Institute for Reproductive Health is a national advocacy organization that works with cities and states to galvanize public support, catalyze policy change, and normalize the decisions that women make around our reproductive lives, including that we use contraception and have abortions. Unfortunately, for many women, the times we are living in are unmistakably grim. As I'm sure I don't have to tell you, but bears repeating, in Washington, D.C., we have a president on a crusade to roll back the Affordable Care Act and overturn Roe versus Wade at any moment he might have the opportunity to do so. On Capitol Hill, just days ago, the House of Representatives once again attacked access to reproductive health care and rights by passing a new law that they hope will create a ban nationwide on abortions after 20 weeks. And throughout the country, and I'm going to pause for this. This may be a number you'll be surprised by. At the state legislative level, more than 390 laws against abortion alone, just on the issue of abortion. Laws that shame, pressure, and punish women, making it harder to control our reproductive lives. Well, despite what can seem like near constant darkness these days, there remains a bright light in our nation. The ability of cities to resist and more, to make progress, to truly lead. And that includes making a commitment to their residents to fight for the full range of freedoms necessary for women to determine their life's path, for young people to have the education and health care they need and deserve, for families to be able to support themselves, for those who are undocumented, LGBTQ, truly for all people to lead safe, healthy, and full lives that we all deserve. Mayors and city leaders, like the one standing beside and behind me, can and do act as a counterweight to the daily dose of destructive policies the federal government is doling out. Advocates, healthcare providers, activists like Gilda and Sarah and Amy and others standing here show how we can do so much at the local level that not only affects those in our own communities, but can have large-scale societal and political implications and make true change. Excuse me. Creating the kinds of progressive policies that support women, respect our decisions about our bodies and our futures, and protect our ability to determine if and when and how to have a family. And in cities around the country, I am so pleased that leaders are taking steps, some big, some small, to do exactly that. This morning, the National Institute for Reproductive Health launched the Local Reproductive Freedom Index. It's a first-of-its-kind initiative to elevate and evaluate the reproductive health, rights, and justice policies of 40 of this country's largest cities. And I'm here today because in doing that, we found that one city was truly a pioneer, blazing a path and creating a model for other cities and states to follow. The city I'm describing has done, among other things, passed protections for abortion clinics to ensure anyone seeking access to reproductive health care services is not subjected to violence and harassment. Signed an ordinance regulating the harmful and deceitful practices of crisis pregnancy centers. Developed teen-friendly family planning services so that no matter one's age, a young person can safely seek advice and gain access to the reproductive health services that they need, no questions asked. Provided a $15 minimum wage so that families can support themselves. And created
Let me know when we're back. All right, folks, we are back in open session. Can I entertain a motion not to disclose what we discussed in closed session? Moved by Supervisor Tang, seconded by Supervisor Farrell. Colleagues, can we take that without objection? Without objection, the motion passes. Madam Clerk, please read the in memoriams.
Today's meeting will be adjourned in memory of the following beloved individuals. On behalf of Supervisor Cohen, for the late Mr. Jeff Betcher. On behalf of Supervisor Ronan, for the late Mr. Jesus Chuy Esteva. On behalf of Supervisor Safai, for the late Miss May Wong. At the suggestion of Supervisor Safai and on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors, for the late Mr. Larry Martin.
Thank you, colleagues. And I just want to say for the record, we took no action in closed session. And with that, Madam Clerk, is there any further business before us today?
That concludes our business.
All right, we are adjourned. Have a wonderful evening.